Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charles Allen. I am a council member from the District of Columbia for Ward 6, and I'm also this year's chair of our COG Board of Directors. It is my honor to welcome everyone to what I think is a historic board meeting between our COG boards and our WMATA boards. I appreciate everyone taking the time out of your day and busy schedules and the importance and most importantly, the opportunity that's in front of us to do that. I'm officially calling our COG board meeting to order right now, and I want to pass it over to my co-chair for today's meeting to introduce himself and take his action.
Thank you, Chair Allen. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Smedberg, Chair of the WMATA Board of Directors, and we want to thank you on behalf of the board for joining us here today. The Metro Board of Directors meeting is also called to order, and it's a pleasure to have our boards come together today to embark on what I hope is a pivotal point for our region. And as a reminder, this meeting is open to the public and is being live streamed on both WMATA and COG websites. Before we start, we'd like to go around the room and have each board member introduce him or herself. And obviously, for the sake of time, please say your name and affiliation only, please. There will be plenty of time for comments and questions later in the agenda. Mr. Clark.
Randy Clark, WMATA General Manager.
Kevin Donahue, District of Columbia.
Jessica Fitzwater, Frederick County Executive on the COG Board.
Andrea Bailey, Supervisor in the Potomac District Board of County Supervisors on the Executive Board.
Don Drummer, Metro Board Member.
Phyllis Randall, Chair at Large, Loudoun County and COG Board Member. By public notice, I have to say, I was informed to say by our county attorney in Loudoun County that there are 3 members of the Loudoun County Board in this meeting, Mr. Letourneau, Mr. Croney, and myself. If you live in Virginia, you know that 3 people cannot be in a board meeting from one board at one time. And so I have to announce this publicly. This issue is a FOIA issue, and so the way this has to be handled today is that 2 of us at one time can take part of the conversation, the other one cannot. After July 1st, this issue will be solved because the Virginia General Assembly has fixed the problem, but as it is before July 1st, I have to make this public, somewhat embarrassing announcement. Thank you very much.
Laura Tacroni, Little River District, Loudoun County on the COG Board.
Good afternoon, everyone. Denise Mitchell, Mayor Pro Tem, City of College Park, and on the COG Board.
Case Sidnor Laurel.
Evan Glass, at-large member of the Montgomery County Council, COG Board.
Robert Wu, City of Gaithersburg, Council Member, COG Board.
Monique Ashton, Mayor of Rockville.
I'm Mark Sickles, Virginia House of Delegates, 17th District.
Tara Jackson, Prince George's County, alternate for County Executive Angela Also Brooks.
Caroline Leon, City of Falls Church, Council Member, COG Board.
Libby Garvey, Chair of the Arlington County Board, Member of the COG Board.
Brian Feldman, Maryland State Senator, COG Board.
Matt Letourneau, Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, but Metro Board.
Mark Elrich, County Executive, COG Board.
Mark Wolf, City of Manassas Council, COG Board.
Jeff McKay, Chairman of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors and COG Board.
I'm Sarah Klein. I represent the federal government on the Metro Board.
James Walkinshaw, Fairfax County Board of Supervisors and COG Board.
Catherine Reed, Mayor of Fairfax City, COG Board.
Kirk McPike, City Councilman from Alexandria, Virginia, alternate to the COG Board for Mayor Wilson.
Bria Nadeau, DC Council Member and COG Board alternate.
Hi, I'm Tracy Hadlow, and I represent the district on the Metro Board.
Michael O'Connor, Mayor of the City of Frederick, COG Treasurer.
Reuben Collins, President, Board of County Commissioners of Charles County, and I'm Vice Chair of the COG Board. One of the Vice Chair.
Rodney Luss, Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, and the second Vice Chair of the COG Board.
Clark Mercer, I'm the Executive Director of COG.
So thank you again for coming together today and to the COG Board for inviting WMATA to join this conversation. We welcome this collaborative approach to solve long-standing issues that have severely impacted our future as a region. Both WMATA and COG have a responsibility to help lead regional transportation planning, and this joint initiative begins to fulfill that role. The planned partnership builds on recent coordination related to Metro's fiscal year 25 financial challenges. And on that note, we want to take this opportunity to thank our elected officials and business leaders, community, and government partners for the historic commitments they have made to Metro and the region to keep Metro strong in the coming years. I see some of these leaders are in attendance today, and we want to thank you for your time. We appreciate your support, and we need your continued engagement in the months ahead. Engagement across the public, private, and civic sectors will be key to our partnership success. I think there's one thing that we certainly learned when we were talking to a lot of our elected leaders, whether it be local and/or state, and they realized we can't do this anymore, and they recognize the value of Metro, and particularly of public transportation in the DMV, and how it benefits every segment of our region: residents, visitors, employers, employees, students, and more. Today we're starting something we should have done as a region, or we can do as a region, and begin elevating this conversation about how to effectively provide and fund public transit in an open, transparent way that looks at our entire transit network holistically. Public transportation in the DMV benefits every segment of our region. We owe our communities the continued economic opportunity and environmental sustainability that comes from robust transit options. This effort in our region will hopefully become a roadmap to unifying, optimizing, and delivering the world-class transit network people expect and deserve. The future is now, and we must commit to investment, innovation, and a plan. I look forward to working with our regional leaders, and so do my fellow board members in the coming months. Now I'll turn it back over to Chair Allen.
Thank you very much, Chair Smedberg, and I couldn't agree more with you. It is the time to act, and to act with urgency to ensure that the systems that make up our regional transit network are financially stable, and they're offering a level of service that our residents need and deserve across our entire region. WMATA is just one part, albeit the largest, of a regional public transit network that has evolved over time. It's a network with more than a dozen rail and bus providers offering varying service levels, different technologies, different fare policies, as well as an array of funding and governing models that don't always work together. If we want to unlock our transit network's full potential and realize the opportunity in front of us to take advantage of the moment that actually we've all helped create with the hard work that took place over the last 12 months, now is our time, now is our opportunity, and it will help us avoid lurching from financial crisis to crisis, but instead, it'll be a time to bring our leaders together, our regional leaders together, like never before, to chart the path forward. And in bringing these two boards together, we are creating a historic and crucial opportunity for leaders across the entire DC region to develop a shared vision and a shared path forward. It's not just for how more than a dozen rail and bus systems can align transit needs across DC, Maryland, and Virginia, but also how we collectively meet the challenge of sustainable and dedicated funding. WMATA plays a central role in the region's growth and success, and our new effort will bring together our key decision makers to ensure great transit makes the metropolitan Washington area the premier region for people to live and work, and for businesses large and small to set up shop. To tackle these challenges, the Executive Committee and I invite WMATA to join COG in partnering on a year-long initiative to develop a unified vision for transit service in the region, and I'm excited to get started and to share more about our thoughts on how we move forward with the unprecedented opportunity for regional collaboration and action. I'm going to turn back to Chair Smedberg for a little bit. I'll note that DC's Mayor, Muriel Bowser, will be joining us later, and when she arrives, we'll certainly ask her to bring welcoming remarks as well, but let me turn to Chair Smedberg.
Thank you, Charles. Now I have the honor of introducing two of our presenters today and leaders in this community. First, Metro CEO and General Manager Randy Clark, and COG Executive Director Clark Mercer, to present the framework of our partnership and developing a vision for transit in the region. Mr. Clark, Mr. Mercer.
Thank you, Chair Smedberg. I'm excited to be here. Again, Clark Mercer, Director of COG, and level set a little bit here and jump into the why. Why are we here and what is the opportunity ahead of us? But first, I would like to thank our staffs at WMATA and COG. Have done a fantastic job in getting us here today and putting this together, so thank you. And the staff at the Mayflower, this is a beautiful venue, and we appreciate all that you do. See if I can work this slide deck. Okay, so let's level set here. I think it's the first couple slides. I'm going to hand it off to Randy in a moment, but we're going to talk about the why. Why is it so important that we have a better coordinated, better funded, and visionary plan on the table for transit in this region? And the title there sums it up. A world-class region needs world-class transit. I would posit that we have a world-class transit system here in the DMV, but it can be better. And it can be better coordinated, it can be more efficient, and certainly there can be more predictability and secure funding. That's going to require a vision, partnership, and leadership, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So the region today, and if you've been to a COG board meeting, this slide is not going to be a surprise to you. We are a large and vibrant region. 24 jurisdictions, 141 activity centers, 156 transit stations, over 12,000 bus stops. We encompass 3,500 square miles, 5.7 million people, 3.3 million jobs. Folks are taking 18 million trips per day in this region, and that encompasses 122 million vehicle miles traveled. If we were our own state and you look at our GDP, we'd be in the top 10. We'd be tops in the country with percent of the population with an advanced degree in diversity. We are a strong and impressive region. Working with your planning directors, budget directors throughout the region, the numbers on the right is where we are going. We are growing as a region. We will add 1.5 million people to this region by 2045, nearly 7 million people. That's almost a 25% increase. We'll increase by 1 million jobs, over a 25% increase. When you look at that middle set of data points, moderate increase if things stay as they are with access to high capacity transit, 10% increase. Transit trips will increase, but our transit mode share in the region is in red because that's 7%. Now you look on that right-hand side, we're going to see a double-digit increase in single driver trips, vehicle miles traveled, and yep, congested lane miles, we hear enough about congestion as it is, it will increase by almost 50% if things stay as is. And that is tied quite directly to vehicle hours of delay increasing by 50% and minutes of delay. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our environmental goals. Simply put, we do not meet them or come close without a strong, vibrant transit system. We will be 18% off of our target to decrease greenhouse gases by 2050 if things stay as is. The region's goals and objectives, these have been approved not only at the COG level, but they have been approved to some various degree at each of your county and city and town levels. And the top line there are the products that COG puts together working with your staff and elected officials, but we're talking about increasing mode sharing for transit, walking, and biking, centering equity in our plans and action, increasing the number of jobs that are accessible by transit, reducing greenhouse gases, reducing driving and vehicles miles traveled, having a safe, reliable, and affordable mobility and accessibility system. All of those goals that we have set, that you have set, along with your colleagues on your boards and councils, simply cannot be met without a strong and vibrant transit system. This slide, if you look at a return on investment and a business case for transit, this is as close to a no-brainer as you can get. Transit in this region is responsible for $9.4 billion in additional business output. 1.2 million trips are avoided each day by 2025 with a strong transit system. 1.2 metric tons of greenhouse gas avoided by transit, saving close to $30 billion in avoided road construction costs, $2 billion in avoided parking costs. And of course, if you look at a metro station and have one in your jurisdiction, there's a significant increase in property values, $330 billion tied around our metro stops. So I don't think I have to make the case, this is preaching to the proverbial choir here, of why transit is so important to all of our region's goals. Positioning transit as people's first choice, taking people where they need or want to go, when they want to go, expanding connections to jobs and economic opportunities with fast, high-frequency, all-day transit, providing better service in traditionally underserved communities, reducing traffic and harmful emissions, improving air quality and general health, encouraging development and strong economic growth, broadening our business access to a more diverse workforce, and fostering vibrant, livable, car-optional communities. These are shared priorities for all of our elected officials and this region, and why we are here today. And now to level set the current state of affairs with transit in the region, I'll hand it off to Randy Clark. Randy? Oh, and Mayor Bowser has arrived. Welcome, Mayor, and we'll offer the floor to you for some remarks.
And also Chairman.
Great. Thank you, Clark, for the intro on that. I want to reiterate the chair's comments of thanks to our entire region, a lot of elected officials in this room, a lot of stakeholders as well, put a lot of effort to solving the FY25 budget. Was certainly a massive challenge, but we were able to preserve service, preserve a lot of jobs, and keep this region's not only recovery going, but I think thriving. So from the entire staff, we want to just thank everyone for digging in with us on that. I want to thank, as Clark said, Clark is just fantastic. Couldn't ask for a better partner, quite frankly, running COG right at the moment, and all the staff and the teamwork. I want to just highlight a couple things as I get in here. I got some kind of new stats that I thought kind of could frame up where we're going. So ridership, it's May 1st. So ridership, we actually closed April with more people on bus than we had pre-pandemic, right? So that's 2 months, I think it is straight, where we have more people on bus than pre-pandemic. Last week, we had 423,000 twice on bus, our highest day, a single day since the pandemic. Year to date, we're 83% covered combined trips compared to the pre-pandemic. So anyone that says no one's back on transit, transit's really busy. We've had 5 weeks straight where we've had over 1 million people on the weekend. In 2019, we only had 3 weekends where we hit 1 million, and we've only had 5 this year. So yeah, some rush hour stuff's a little different, but people are out, and they're out at different times, and they really are using transit. Customer satisfaction is the highest in the history of Metro in the last quarter. That's a big deal that the team's working hard on. Fare evasion, we announced yesterday, is down 60% in 1 year. And crime is down 26% year over year. So I just want to really reiterate publicly the thanks to the team and all of our partners that are working really hard on all these really important topics. So with that, we'll flow into, I'm going to go a little quicker here on a couple pieces, and then Clark will close out on the process. And then we obviously, big thing is we want to get some feedback from you all on how to move this, quite historic, unprecedented process forward. As Clark mentioned, we at Metro are kind of the big elephant on transit, but we have a lot of great partners. And this opportunity is to think about how all of us can create a more integrated network. And that doesn't necessarily mean Metro running everything. It could be Metro doing some things, it could be fare policy, it could be how we do bus stops, it could be a lot of things. Lots of regions have gone through this process about how the networks all have to run together, whether domestically, Europe, Asia, that type of thing. So we have a lot of operators. It's kind of evolved over the last 30, 40 years, and it's kind of a once in a generational opportunity to kind of evaluate where we are with all the operators and kind of what we all want to do from a transit point of view. Okay, so on the market, if you look at the market here, kind of highlighting what I just said, ridership, obviously Metro Rail, Metro Bus make up the overwhelming amount of transit trips, but we have lots of incredible partners that are doing pieces. Lots of the partners I talk to want to do more as well, just like Metro, right? We have significant gaps in our network. We run a lot of buses where, say, after 8 p.m., there's no bus service, or we run it on Saturday and not Sunday, or no weekends. We can't expect people to be car-free or car-light if they're not going to have good, consistent service throughout the 7-day period. And like I just demonstrated, the weekend is also critically important, and I think we all know there's a lot of people that have jobs on the weekend too, and they have to have good service, right? So we have not only a transportation point there, we have a access to opportunity conversation. And we just want to kind of highlight where we are as a region about where the ridership is and how we all kind of can work together on that. The next piece here, again, a little bit of the highlight I mentioned, there are fewer trips overall than pre-pandemic, both car, like auto, if you will, and transit. But I just mentioned it's coming back, and it's coming back a little different. We are still have peaks. Like today, we're going to move probably somewhere on 875,000 people probably on Metro today. Probably, yeah, it's Wednesday, probably like 875, give it maybe closer to 900. But AM is a little softer. And then PM, if anyone has ever been in a car around here, I've been in a car a little bit more with my leg injury. 5 PM in the region is like gridlock everywhere, it seems, right? And that's, some of those people used to be on transit, or people that moved here and we got to get on transit. And then obviously, like I mentioned, special events and weekends and things of that nature. This is a little bit more of the trends that we're getting at. Some of our local operators are actually carrying, just like us, higher. Dash is a good one to call out. Now, Dash is a, quite frankly, Old Town is busy as you could get. I know the chair lives there. It's a very busy place. Dash also went fare free in that area. I think that has actually been really helpful for that part of the system. Other operators on commuter are struggling a little bit more. Not that there's not people in the system, but just naturally, if you will, the downtown-centric 5-day-a-week commute is a little different than some leisure/business travel. And then you could see on the Metro Rail side, we're very solid Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday and Friday are a little softer. Interesting, Friday evenings tend to get a lot busier. Magically, everyone gets off Teams and Zoom and wants to actually interact with human beings and do stuff. So we could really see that. And as I mentioned, Metro bus ridership, when we finally hit April data, we're back over where we were pre-pandemic. So as a region, patterns are tweaking, but we still have a fundamental. We have a big economy here, and we need to be really good for rush hour, but we also need to be good for all days, all hours and all days of the week. This one's an interesting piece. This basically shows you that we have a lot more potential that we're not tapping into as a region. And to me, the big key here is whether people are on Metro or any other of our operators, there's just not enough people on transit. And as Clark mentioned, none of the goals that the COG board passed, or most everybody here has passed individually at your jurisdiction, can happen without more people on transit. We got to get our mode share split higher. Walking and cycling has gone up, which is the greenest of green, and quite frankly, the best from a wellness point of view. But we need more people on transit, period, across our region. And this shows if we could actually build a better integrated network and really get some of our gaps filled, we have a chance to pick up a lot of people and turn them into regular transit users, which then will help their affordability and help our other goals. So the market is there. We got to determine how we want to invest. And I use the invest word very clearly, not subsidize, but invest to make those outcomes come together. Okay, so needs and opportunity. Here's kind of some stuff that we're working on that, well, some stuff we worked on and studies that have been done here for 20 years and topics that people have talked about. I've been the WMATA GM, I guess, for about 20 months, how time flies. And everyone, transit's one of those unique things in transportation. Everyone has opinion on it because everyone moves, right? People want us to move the better bus network. So we're going to be taking that out next month. It's been a multi-year process. We're far behind a lot of parts of the country, but we've kind of caught up. We'll be taking that to our board this fall for ideally some action to implement next year. But we're going to be implementing a cost-neutral bus network redesign. So that will make us a little more efficient and grow a little ridership, but we're not covering all the gaps that have been clearly identified both in the technical and the community engagement process. BRT. We need to do way better job at BRT in this region. And we have a lot of BRT conversations going on, but quite frankly, we don't have a regional BRT plan. We have 7 or 12 different BRT plans by every different group thinking about their own BRT, and therefore we don't have a level of quality of service that we can actually all agree what is that quality that we want to communicate to our public at large of the expectation of that service quality. We also express bus network. I spent a lot of time in the Boston area. A good example is there's a robust express bus network to the airports. We don't have that here. A good example, when I've heard people say we should have express buses from Silver Spring as an example to BWI, or those types of things. We could really think about that collectively as well, regionally. We need to work on our all-day frequent VRE MARC regional rail system, which a lot of people are doing great work on, and think about how that connects in. We have a bike network that is growing across the region and a bike share program that is doing very well and how that connects. In a lot of places around the country, bikes are becoming part of the transit network, so it's easier and smoother on the fares and the system. There's been talk about taking a water taxi system and turning it truly into a regional ferry system. There's lots of potential there if we want to do that. We have numerous amounts of Metro Rail projects that people have talked about for a long time, and some resiliency projects that we have to work on and maybe fix some of the fatal flaws that were built in Metro. And just really think about these regional centers of how to kind of connect people together. So there is a lot of opportunity. There's been an enormous amount of studies. And part of what we're hoping this exercise will do is not create a new study, but take some of this work and let's make an action plan of what we want to do versus talking about what we want to do. And universally, people told me that's what they all want out of us in the going forward too. So we have some work to do here, but again, not to make it all about money, but money will drive a lot of this conversation. I got a report, some people have heard this story, when I got this opportunity from someone that worked at FTA before it was known as FTA. And in 1976, the Ford Foundation did a study, and the top quote basically says, the funding structure for Metro is broken and it's never gonna work. That was a month before the system opened. It was also a year before I was born. And now we're at this historic meeting talking about the fact that the model is still broken. So we did great work, I mean, incredible work by leaders in this room and others to move the FY25 budget forward, but we need predictability. We fundamentally don't have predictability in Metro, which means you as regional partners don't have predictability of your budgets, and we got to get out of that cycle. We don't have the ability to move service planning, fleet planning, capital planning, and workforce planning without us all having some line of sight on, what multi-year budgeting kind of looks like. So it's kind of the ongoing topic. And the last thing I want to kind of really highlight is this is not a Metro-only problem. This is a national crisis, and some regions are stepping up differently than others. New York really came together on the state and the city level, and not only funded their operating problems that they've had, they're expanding multiple subway lines, major regional rail, and tons of bus stuff. And they're really saying their future is based on transit. Other regions, like in Chicago, there's a big report that came out this week where they're talking about maybe amalgamating or combining all of their agencies together. And there's a big study in San Francisco, BART area, in the Bay Area doing that. And then there's other places like Philly that's trying to get something through from a state and city point of view. Everyone is coming out of the pandemic trying to figure this problem out. So we're not alone. We can learn from others, but we have a chance to really shine here for some leadership. So I'll do 2 quick slides on world-class transit, and then I'll hand it back to Clark. So I agree that we have a great transit system. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I fundamentally believe we have the best transit system in the United States of America, and we should be very proud of what we have here. With that said, we have room for improvement. There's no getting around it. We have gaps, and there's stuff that we need to work on. So Lyndon Johnson, President Johnson, 1966, he came out with the idea that Metro should be this global standard. And whether these sketches to the design, you name it, the idea was we are going to be that standard that why would Paris have something better than us mentality as an example, right? And we do have beautiful architecture and we do have a beautiful system. But this is the first time in Metro's history that Metro has nothing designed or engineered in the pipeline to build. First time since Metro was formed, we have nothing to build. Whereas all of these other places have a major plan because they're thinking what they want to be in 2040, 2050, 2060. So we're at this inflection point right now. So here's a couple cities that just highlight some of the stuff we want to move forward this conversation. And I think the June task force meeting will really start diving in on kind of the opportunities of world class. But we have places like Barcelona, Madrid that have moved the bus program just in incredible ways, reduce costs and get more people on. We have lots of really good, safer, more cost-efficient, more reliable rail systems using some automation and things like that around the world. And we have places like Singapore that have a one mobility pass that connects everything from your tolls to your bike to your transit and everything together. We use this slide to basically demonstrate this is all possible. These are human decisions. We have some tech stuff to work on, but where there's a will, there's a way on all of this stuff. And it's really showing that there's other cities that are really projecting that kind of 20, 30-year leadership on that. And we can definitely do that here. So with that, Clark, I'll turn it back to you for kind of the layout of this task force and the roadmap ahead.
All right. Thank you, Randy. All right, so we're going to lay out here kind of what's next.
Could I
Mayor, you ready? Yep, absolutely. Mayor Bowser.
Welcome and greetings, and let me apologize for arriving a few moments late, but let me congratulate everybody who's been involved in organizing this joint task force, and thank all of you for coming, and thank you for choosing this beautiful downtown DC location. I want to echo some of what I heard from Randy in saying just what a model I think that Washington Metro, that DC Metro um, is for the nation in terms of the comeback. And I don't think that we give ourselves enough credit for it. But people are noticing that our riders are coming back. And we didn't do it by starving the system. We did it by investing in the system. And our riders are also noticing that. And I know you've heard me say 1,000 times that Metro is the economic engine for this entire region, and having a robust, safe, and affordable metro is really our pathway for the whole region to attract more jobs, more residents, and more economic growth. So we're delighted, and I'm happy to be here with members of the DC Council to have a very focused discussion about what our investments will take. And as a 1/3 payer for our system, it really drives a lot of our planned expenditures for the next several years. And that predictability is also going to be important. I think I also speak for a lot of people when we acknowledge the work that the authority has done this year to look very closely at its operations, just like we're all doing across the region. And that is helpful in these discussions. So we look forward to being active participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We're grateful for you and your team's leadership. Thank you. All right, let's lay out what this process is going to look like and then obviously turn it over to our chairs for a robust discussion here. We need to start with what is an integrated DMV transit network look like. Too often in this region, when we talk about issues of transit, we jump to funding or folks want to talk about governance. You can't really do either of those until there's a clear definition of what it is we want to be and what we want our transit network to look like. Randy went over a laundry list of different types of transit options that are available or could be available in this region, but we need to have a transparent and robust discussion about what we want in transit in this region. Obviously tying those back to the goals that are articulated there on the left that I spoke about earlier, grounded in the priorities that you have at your respective councils and boards. I like this slide because it talks about, what a consistent and excellent customer experience could look like. I often say if I call you on the cell phone and it bounces off 13 different satellites, but the reception is crisp and I'm not paying a big bill, that's okay, right? So there are 13, 14 providers of bus in this region, and that's always a good example to go to. What efficiencies can we bring to bear when it comes to procurement, when it comes to maintenance and operations, when it comes to signage, when it comes to the end user's experience of being able to get around this region in a way that makes sense? A definition of fares for a senior or a student in one jurisdiction is different than in another jurisdiction, which is different than in another jurisdiction. So while I think we should put on the table some discussions of what bringing those efficiencies to bear might look like, and they can be as simple as aligning fare policies, or perhaps, maintenance and operation or procurement, things that can drive cost efficiencies as well. But that needs to be built in, and it will be to this process, defining what we want as a region out of transit. Once we define what we want out of transit in this region, it is relatively easy to articulate what that costs and what there are in terms of options to pay for transit. But we can't have that discussion and shouldn't until we can define what it is that we want out of transit. And then lastly, the third piece, once we define what we want and how we can pay for it, how to govern what we want. So the time is right. Why should COG and Metro come together? COG is the only governmental entity in this region that brings together Virginia, Maryland, and the district. Then having spent time in all three and a number of years in Richmond, I can tell you it doesn't go over well when one state tells the other two what to do or how to run their systems. So we need a collaborative approach where we're all at the table working on this. COG can bring folks together. In terms of why Metro, the slides have been put out there. It does have the lion's share of transit. However, I will note, and we'll talk about this, we are inviting and will have all transit stakeholders at the table for this process. It's an open and transparent process with no predetermined outcomes, and we want folks' voice at the table, offering their thoughts, their concerns about a path forward. Obviously, Metro is a logical partner to partner with on this process because it's the lion's share. They provide the lion's share of transit. Why now? So this is interesting. A reporter asked me yesterday, what's different this time versus other times this has happened? Well, this is the first time our boards have ever come together for a joint board meeting. I think it's a level of, one, recognition that we have issues that need to be solved, and a level of exhaustion from elected officials and stakeholders that we cannot continue to kick the can down the road. So we are going to put, and I have spoken with many of you around these tables, this is not an opportunity for another report that will go on a shelf and collect dust. This is going to be a sprint to produce recommendations that are actionable at the local, state, and federal levels to address and fix some of our transit issues once and for all. So what is the process and how's it going to look? That kind of just summarizes what I said. One, define what we want, our vision and our system plan. Two, how do you fund it? What are options to pay for that? And then three, how do you govern it and oversee it? Project leadership and delivery. So you all will discuss this, and there's a proposed task force in your packets. It encompasses 20 regional leaders, so it's 15 leaders from the COG footprint. That's 5 from Maryland, 5 from the district, 5 from the Commonwealth. It includes executive and legislative branch participation and leadership at the local and county and city level. 4 WMATA appointees, 1 each from Maryland, DC, and Virginia, along with the federal representative of WMATA to their board. And the federal government is the largest employer in this region. They will have a seat at the table and will participate with a federal representative. These meetings of the task force will be public. They will rotate from jurisdictions. We will work with you when the meeting is in your jurisdiction. So show us your best foot forward when we visit. We will start in June. We're going to get dates out for the rest of the year. 2 task force members ASAP. I understand how important it is to calendar folks' years. Things get busy. Advisory groups. We have 2 advisory groups that I'm happy to talk about here. Community Partners Advisory Group. This is your Board of Trade, your Greater Washington Partnership, our partners in labor, our environmental folks, the Northern Virginia Chamber, the Prince George's Chamber, a long list that's in your packet. One, it's not an exhaustive list. If we have missed somebody, please let us know. We will add them. And I've told our partners, one, if we're going to pull this off, we've got to have everyone participating. I want to find consensus. We want to find consensus and a path forward. My fingers are crossed, that's what we're going to do. But what's not going to happen is when this process ends, someone says, I wasn't at the table, my voice was not heard. And like I said earlier, there are no predetermined outcomes here. And as the COG leader, and I've talked with Randy, yes, Metro is an important piece of this, but we have a lot of transit operators with their own priorities and thoughts in this region. And we need to be respectful and mindful of that. We're going to get folks to work better together. We don't know what that looks like right now. You have a list of the Community Partners Group in your packets, and I want to specifically recognize our chairs have talked, and I've asked Jack McDougall from the Board of Trade to chair that working group, and Jack is here today. So Jack, thank you very much. The Board of Trade is a premier group bringing our business leaders together, and they have been proactive and positive partners in this process, and we're grateful for that. The Government Partners Advisory Group is also listed. That is all your transportation authorities, your transportation commissions, all of your bus operators, MARC, VRE, the chief administrative officers from all 24 jurisdictions, our chief financial officer of the district. This is our technical work group. They know numbers, they know processes better than anyone. They have worked with us for the past year to trust but verify Metro's numbers and get to the bottom of the fiscal cliff and solve it. Brian Hill is the CAO of one of our largest jurisdictions in the region, Fairfax County, and he has agreed to chair the Government Partners Advisory Group. The project management, so we are splitting this with Metro in terms of division of labor and cost. We both have excellent staffs, grateful for both of those. We recognize that we need a couple of pros to come in that you will recognize, that have stature, that know transit, but more importantly, know this region. When you look at previous efforts to address these issues, sometimes folks will come in that folks might recognize nationally, but don't know this region, the players, and WMATA. So we have 2 folks that I want to introduce now and ask them to say a few words. Nuria Fernandez is a civil engineer, and she served until very recently as the administrator of the Federal Transit Administration under President Biden. She has held leadership positions in large transit agencies, including as a general manager and CEO of the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, and the Chief Operating Officer of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority from 2011 to 2014, and was the Senior Vice President of Design and Construction for both Chicago's Transit Authority, the CTA, and right here at home at WMATA from 1994 to 1997. Joining Nuria will be Nick Donahue, who is a principal at Capital Transportation Consulting, which he has run for the past couple of years. Many of you know Nick. He served as the Deputy Secretary of Transportation for 8 years in Virginia, leading projects for the Commonwealth and the DMV region, including Smart Scale, the Long Bridge project, and Reimagining Rail, and was intimately involved with all of our partners in the 2018 capital funding discussions. Prior to his service to the Commonwealth, he was the Policy and Legislative Director at Transportation for America. So Ms. Fernandez, if you'd like to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you, both chairs of COG and WMATA, as well as the leadership of each of those organizations and elected and appointed officials that have joined. Not too many things get me going, but I'll say that I've been retired exactly 60 days. And when I was asked to get involved with this initiative, I thought about it, but just for a very short time, because I knew how important it is for this region to continue to be successful. It is, as was noted earlier, this is a model for not only the nation, but the world. When I worked at WMATA in the early 90s, we were called the transit system of the nation. And every single agency that I went to work after that always looked to WMATA for best practices. And, you know, fast forward, here we are, a region that is vibrant, diverse, has been described, one that is doing extremely well, and that doesn't happen by chance. Every single one of the jurisdictions that have identified what their community expects have developed a process to deliver that quality service. And what this effort is going to do is take all of those good ideas and create a unified vision. Because as we all know, it's not just the individual parts, it's coming together as a whole. And it's that emphasis on a holistic vision that's unified, that thinks big, that it's not constrained by talking about what the funding is today and how much we can only do, but talk about what is it that we want to achieve. And then we will figure out what we can fund. But clearly, if we do not move to that direction, I think that at the end of the day, the outcome won't be what you desire. I have been a resident of Montgomery County for many years. I have also lived in the District of Columbia, and now I reside in the city of Alexandria.
Well, thanks, Nuria. And first, I just want to say it's great to see so many familiar faces this afternoon. And I want to thank COG and the WMATA board for the opportunity to be here with you and to work on this really, really important initiative. As Nuria said, transit is just so critical for this region, and we are at this inflection point where we need to have this discussion. And so I'm extremely excited to be a part of this discussion. I lived in Capitol Hill for 10 years. I worked for Virginia for over a decade. I've taken the MARC to BWI and also traversed around Maryland in a number of different fashions. And so we all know how critical and important transit is for this region. And so I really look forward to working with all of you all in this room, the stakeholders, and members of your staff on this critically important issue as we kind of move forward. So again, I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to work with you.
All right, thank you very much. We are excited to have you both on board. And to Mr. Clark and Mr. Mercer, thank you both for those presentations. You know, I'll say two things jump out to me is opportunity and urgency. I think all of us feel that. I think the hard work that we talked about that all of us have done in partnership over the last 12 months have us in a place where we can actually sit at this table and work on that. But I know none of us take for granted the urgency that's required to not find ourselves right back in the space that we've been in. This is going to be hard, but I am incredibly confident as a region we can do this. We have to do this, but we can do this. I also want to say from an urgency perspective, and many of us understand our timelines, while we're looking at this as an entire year-long process, we also know the constraints of our budget process, our legislative cycles. So I know I would like to push hard that we actually have actions that can be taken when we come to January this time on the calendar. So while the overall work is going to take about a year, I think we've got to come away around January with some very concrete action steps, simply because of the cycle that we all know from our budget and our legislative cycles in all of our jurisdictions. So again, my thanks for the presentation. I hope that level sets where we're going to go, but now we're going to turn it over for conversation. We want to take questions, take your comments. Remarkably, we're about 7 minutes ahead on the agenda. So that means we get 7 extra minutes, but don't take them all, please. So what we're going to do is I'm going to help facilitate comments and questions from both of our boards. Paul's going to join me in that, so we try to help bring out all of our members here. And we've set aside a really significant chunk of time for this. And then after that, we will move to consideration about 145. We're going to move to consideration of our joint resolution. But with that, I would love to turn to see who's got comments, who's got questions that we can help answer. We'll do our best to do a lineup and move our way through it.
And also, look at the 2 questions that are on the board there. If you could direct some of your comments to those 2 questions or your thoughts to those 2 questions, it would be really, really helpful.
Excellent. Mr. Wolf?
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate this, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the effort that we're starting upon. I represent a non-metro jurisdiction, and I will be honest, when I initially read the packet, I had a couple of qualms and questions, because while metro is predominant and cannot be ignored, it has to be obviously the biggest player in the room. There are 13 other agencies that need to be represented in the process. So the fact that we are encompassing transparency, regionalization, bringing everyone in, because I have to tell you, when I'm talking to my transit people in Manassas, Prince William County, they're a little skeptical of this process. And we need to overcome that skepticism and get buy-in from those people and their constituencies for this process to work. So this cannot be a metro-only solution. I'll point out, Andre and I are the only 2 representatives outside, for Prince William County, Manassas, that even bothered to come to the meeting. So, we've got to make sure we're reaching out, engaging, getting everyone as a part of this process, and realizing not everyone's going to get everything they want, but they got to be a part of the process.
Sure. Clark, you started by saying everybody always wants to immediately go to governance, but there's all these other big things. But when you're talking about challenges, I just have to point out, I mean, like you talk about Barcelona, Singapore, Paris, London. I mean, the issue of regional jurisdictions, 3 jurisdictions plus the feds, I mean, to me, that continues and will be a significant issue. And I guess I'd be more interested to know, is there a model? My friend here talked about how in Germany, they've got some models dealing with regional collaboration, regional governance structures. And over the years, people don't want to go there, and you don't want to go there, but I think that will continue to be a bit of a challenge, depending on the politics of Virginia being a little bit different than Maryland and the district. And so that's what I'd like to see moving forward, is some creative ideas borrowing from models that may exist here or elsewhere, that deal with the uniqueness of this system, which is super different than most all the other jurisdictions in this country, but maybe not so much overseas.
I appreciate that. And I think you're right. We want to look to all corners, but also recognize we lean on the expertise that we have here. And to Mr. Wolf, and I should note, the system obviously is trying to stop talk over, crosstalk. So it only allows 2 mics to be turned on, I think, at a time. If you want to jump in the lineup, just raise your hand, give me a nod, and I'll make sure we line you up in there. But don't turn the mic on and just leave it on. But Mr. Wolf, I appreciate your comments as well. I just want to make sure I acknowledge that. And certainly that trust has got to be earned among all our stakeholders. And that's a commitment I think both Mr. Smedberg and I and COG and WMATA want to work on. So I appreciate that. Ms. Garvey?
Thank you. Yeah, Brian and I have been talking about regionalism here, and I brought up this issue of Germany. We've been going back and forth. I think he's really on the mark that the regional issue is something we have to solve, and I do think we can look at other parts of the world. And I have seen that Germany has done. Now, that's really interesting. They got states, and then within those, they got regions that work together. So the other point I wanted to bring up just real quickly, I think, is how, and I know they're included in here. I saw it, is how crucial the business community is, and I really feel in the discussions that we've had over the past number of years, it just feels like business is AWOL. I mean, I said, where are the big business? I won't shout out names here because maybe I shouldn't do that, but we all know who they are. And I don't see them quoted. I don't see them talking to people. I mean, maybe there's some things happening. I'm not seeing it happening. So I'm really worried. We cannot do this without the business community supporting us. And they are the big beneficiaries, I'd like to say.
Chair, and certainly not to speak on behalf of the business community, but working with the Board of Trade, Greater Washington Partnership, the chambers, they're at the table. They want to be at the table. They can be quoted. They're here today. And we've had great conversations, and we're going to keep them at the table and listen to them.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Mr. Lusk and then Ms. Bailey right after that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll just start by saying, in response to the questions that were provided, first I'll say foundationally, we need a transit system that's going to be reliable, predictable, affordable, and safe. Additionally, we need one that's universally used by our residents to address some of the issues that we've talked about around traffic and greenhouse gas emissions. We need a system that supports and includes those in our equity emphasis areas. I think it's important that we have a seamless experience for those users between Metro bus and rail. We want that to be a part of the system as well. Service hours that covers the needs of riders, including day, night, weekend, I think is essential. And again, thinking about the opportunity to promote economic development. This is a big thing that we see as a result of transit, and I'll say in my own community in Fairfax County, we're grateful for the Silver Line and what we've seen in terms of the incredible development around it and its new stations. But I think as we continue to think about that development, looking at the affordable housing components is going to be critical and key as a part of this as well. And then looking at ways to maybe, I think we've talked about this before at our retreat, looking at the air rights as a way to encourage even more development opportunities. And clearly, the big thing here is around costs and being able to support the system. So this conversation, when we talk about challenges, as being able to fund it in a sustainable way is going to be critical and imperative. And I'll say that, you know, it's so clear that the need for both the operations and the capital are evident, and that we've got to figure out how we're addressing both of those from a systems-wide perspective. This is going to be important for not only the region, but also for all of the member jurisdictions as well. And I'll say, if we make these enhancements, if we can make this change and have a dedicated revenue model for Metro, we're going to see improvements in the system. We're going to see more riders. We're going to see opportunities for increased development. And I'm just really excited about the meeting here today, the work that's being started for us to be able to move along this pathway, because it's going to be the underpinning for the future sustainability and viability for Metro. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lusk. Director Bailey, followed by Dr. Lowe.
Thank you, Mrs. Smedberg. Thank you so much for this wonderful meeting. I echo my colleagues have said, this is an essential time in our region for us to move forward with this process, and the intentionality of how we do it is very critical. I am excited about the people that are at the table in terms of the task force. I agree with my colleague from Manassas City. There's a big challenge for us on the southern corridor of our region as we go towards Richmond. And we've had numerous conversations about the Metro, and I said that to my new BFF, Don Drummond, about moving further south. That's an opportunity for us. And if we are intentional about this process, we must be intentional about moving south. And so I think the input, the emphasis, and the intentionality needs to be focused in that direction as well. And then lastly, I want to say one thing that COG is very, very focused on as we talk about resolutions in our community is invoking equity. Invoking equity. And so as we invoke equity, as it relates to economic development, affordable housing, as it relates to food insecurity, which is something that's an undercurrent or garnering, if I will, in this, we must evoke equity in moving south with our transportation initiatives. And so we can't take that for granted. And then lastly, I want to say private industry. they do benefit from my friend Libby. They do benefit from this opportunity. And so with the relationships that we have around the table, it's important that we introduce those types of relationships to make them take ownership for participation.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Dr. Lowe, followed by Chairman McKay.
Thank you, Chair. For my day job, I travel all over the country visiting other U.S. regions and advising them. And I just want to take a moment to emphasize that the challenge of regionalism is real and it's hard, our tri-state nature, for example. But we have to ask ourselves what the cost of not doing hard things is. Resources are finite, and we cannot afford to not work together better. You know, my knowledge that brings me to this table is about how we're running WMATA, for example. And so, you know, this isn't just about like, hey, do we potentially want to consolidate some of these transit services, for example, but like there are ways that we could just run WMATA better. Like, for example, not having so many different audits done to different standards. We spend a lot of money paying various tails to wag a dog, which is the opposite of how we should be doing things. So I think that we should come at this not just with like a doom and gloom, like we have to achieve savings, but that we have a lot to gain in value if we can figure out how to do this. Other regions around the United States are figuring out ways to work together better around abundant green mobility, and we want to be competitive with them. We want to beat them.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe, and very good points. Chair McKay, and if anyone would like to speak, Mr. Vlad, just please motion the chair and I.
Thank you very much, Paul. Just a few thoughts. One, I really appreciate what was said earlier about this not being another study that collects dust, because having served on the Metro board myself some years ago, I flippantly and jokingly say to people, there's probably no institution that's been studied more than Metro. We don't need a study. We need a plan of action. And I think that's why everyone is here today and around this table. This organization has been studied to death. We know there are some fundamental things we have to deal with. One of the things that was mentioned earlier is the idea, obviously, of regionalism and, examples of compact versus non-compact jurisdictions. Just a few things I would say. First, I do think we have to get beyond the compact geography, because outside of the compact, there's a ton of riders. They live in other jurisdictions, they board the system in a different jurisdiction. They're part of why we need to solve this problem. And so we need to have non-compact jurisdictions involved in and a part of this conversation as well. I do also think this is an opportunity to fix transit and not just Metro. And I know that's a theme that's been mentioned before. I don't know what the percent is, but a large percentage of Metro riders, at least from Virginia, start their journey on another transit system that feeds into the Metro system. And so if we don't look at this entire ecosystem, we're losing an opportunity. If we have more robust transit in more suburban areas that feed into our system, ultimately, that's a customer base for us. That's a vested population of people that will care about Metro and need to be engaged. I appreciate all the federal support that we have gotten, that Metro has gotten. But I will say that when you look at a lot of the international systems that have been mentioned before, the common thread is they are federal government supported. And, to build a system of that caliber cannot be done on the very fixed revenues of local jurisdictions. That's just an honesty piece that I think we need to discuss is, moving forward, if we're going to sustain the system we have, or we're going to build it into a system like we've seen in some of the pictures here, I just want to really stress that that can't be done on local revenues, because it's just not sustainable. And so that's a feature that exists in most of those other international systems, is there's a federal ownership element of it. I do think the federal government is a major player in Metro too, and we can't overlook that. Certainly the business community, but let's also keep in mind how essential this service is to federal government operations. And so we need to make sure our federal government is a part of this conversation, part and parcel of coming up with what the solutions are. And I will just say on governance, because this has been studied ad nauseum. And the reality is the governance model reflects largely where the revenues are coming from to support the system. And it's very difficult for any local government official around this table to write the size checks we do to support something as important as Metro without having some role, some input, some influence in the operation. And so I think that's an obvious elephant in the room that I think is worthy of discussion. Finally, I want to pick up on a note that was made earlier by my colleague in Fairfax about economic development. And I'm not jumping ahead to the resolution, but I think a glaring missing point of the resolution is the force of economic development that Metro sustains. And I think it's especially important on the Virginia side that we focus, as we always do in Fairfax, on equity, on access, on job growth, on opportunity, but equally important to engage the business community is talking about how absolutely essential this system is to our economy. And I can't emphasize that enough. I know that the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission did an analysis that showed over $1 billion of revenue generated in the Commonwealth of Virginia simply because of the existence of Metro. I mean, those are the types of things that I think most general people don't understand, and those are the people we're going to have to engage to do something seismic here and to make sure that we don't end up with another study on top of study, but we end up with a plan for action and we identify the necessary stakeholders to make sure we can complete this project and get Metro to the next level. And so I know I've spoken a lot about some things other people have said. I want to reinforce those, but I also think we need to give a lot of thought to some of the fundamental things I just mentioned and how we're going to turn the page potentially and make those better as we move forward. And certainly appreciate everyone's involvement in this, all the different groups that were mentioned, because frankly, not one person around this table is going to solve this problem. We're going to have to solve it together. And as was mentioned earlier, it's worth doing. It's worth putting in the effort to make this right so that someone else isn't sitting here 25 years from now or more, before Randy was born, and saying, why didn't they do something? This is our chance to do something.
Thank you, Jeff, and some very good remarks. And I do want to say, in our discussions we had with local, state officials in the 3 jurisdictions and at the governor's level, mayor level, I mean, everyone understands the value and importance of Metro to this region. They don't want to walk away from that investment, but it isn't, you're right, it isn't just about fixing Metro. And as Clark and Randy emphasized in their presentations, it's about fixing transit, the coordination, the collaboration. So I think that was a really, really important point, and we heard that time and time again during these meetings. So thank you.
Thanks. Next, we're going to turn to Mr. Collins. After that, I've got Mr. Glass, then Ms. Mitchell.
It was interesting. A little over a decade when I was first appointed as a board member for COG, somehow being able to convince myself that our jurisdiction had skin in the game would be somewhat difficult. But during the course of time, I've come to appreciate the significance of the interconnectivity that exists within the region, and even the outlying areas, the more southern areas within COG's region are a reflection of what we're attempting to accomplish. And so I want to really reiterate the comments about creating this vibrant regional approach that includes some of the southernmost regions within COG's jurisdiction. Just a case in point, as a county, our priority for transportation has been a project called Southern Maryland Rapid Transit. This is a connected a transit project with the Green Line, and it will provide tremendous opportunities, and it will have an impact on the overall environment once it's completed. And so what we've recognized during the course of time is, in fact, transit is an equity issue. And what I mean by that is that region, that 301 corridor, is considered one of the worst commutes in the entire nation. But if you look at that region, you see that that is home to one of the wealthiest regions of African Americans in the entire nation. And so it is an equity issue when you put all that in context as we move forward. And another thing that I've learned to appreciate, that transit is not limited to just rail. And Charles County has a Van Go system, and through the years, we've created partnerships with our neighbor in Prince George's County to provide more in terms of opportunity for our residents to work within the two jurisdictions. And so we're beginning to fully appreciate the impact of this interconnectivity. And finally, as it relates to transit, that's not necessarily limited to actual rail itself. One of the primary transportation bus system in our county was the W19 line. And that line was a dedicated line to the Naval Support Facility in the western region of the county. In 2017, that line was disbanded. And what happened as a course of that was an increase of traffic on Route 210, which is the main artery that connects Charles County to Prince George's County to the District of Columbia. And so, Clark, while you're here, I'm kind of putting this out there. The importance of certainly relooking at that line, because it does provide an opportunity, for more of our residents. And again, this is a dedicated line from the district servicing that naval facility. And so I just wanted to close by saying that I wanted to be a part of this discussion because I want to make sure that those outlying areas are heard, because we are a part of the region. And I think by working collectively together, I think we will see what everyone envisions, and that is a world-class transit system.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collins. Let me turn to Mr. Glass, then Ms. Mitchell after that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First, let me uplift Mr. Clark and in defense of all of us born in 1977, first off. So thank you. In all seriousness, I very much appreciate the conversation, the regionalism, and where we all want to go. I have 2 points. One, Mr. Clark, appreciate you sharing also that the bus ridership has been restored or exceeded pre-pandemic levels. So important to lift that up because to me, that is the growth potential and opportunity within the WMATA and regional transportation system. Ride-On, based on the data that's presented here, Ride-On is in Montgomery County is the second most utilized service with 11%. And we know that in Montgomery County, while the average household income is $108,000, the average income of a Ride-On user is $35,000. So for everybody who has lifted up equity, it's incredibly important. We know it exists. And I think to that end, as we talk about the potential, particularly with buses, we need to destigmatize it. There are so many people who would normally and should be taking the bus who don't, for a variety of reasons we can all suspect. And I think once they realize the routes are there, it is safe, it's reliable, and it's affordable, we can get more people onto the bus. And as Chair McKay said, that then feeds into the Metro Rail and other services as well. The other aspect I just want to talk about is the regionalism, and it was alluded to before, the bus rapid transit systems that appear to be in silos. While we are working on a very robust system, and I appreciate the partnership with County Executive Elrich there as we work through our capital budget, as we've been working on one line in particular, Colesville Road, Route 29, it literally stops at Howard County, which is not part of COG, but we know that in morning and PM rush hour, nearly half of the vehicles traveled are from Howard County going through Montgomery County down into the district. And so whether it's Charles County, Fairfax, wherever,
expanding our concentric circles to bring more jurisdictions into the fold, to extend the lines needed and get more people on our buses and Metro Rail, I think is a worthy endeavor. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Ms. Mitchell, I'm going to turn to you just so folks know the lineup. After that, we have Mr. Urwich, Mr. McAndrew, Ms. Klein, and Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again for everyone being here. I truly appreciate the conversation we're having. And to my colleague in Virginia, when you talk about economic development, here in College Park, we are really working on revitalizing the city, and having transit is important for us. For those who work, for those who are visiting, it's vitally important. So we are really emphasizing that, but also accessibility and safety. We house the University of Maryland, over 25,000 students. Many of the parents who come there want to make sure that their children are able to take the bus, well, scholars, young men and women, take the bus to come to DC or whatever other parts of the area. So we really want to make sure that the university or other levels of higher education are at the table too, to talk about what it means to take the transit system, because it is about equity and it is about accessibility. If your scholar is coming home from class at 10, 11 o'clock at night and doesn't have a means of getting transportation because the bus system is down and they don't have limited income, Uber's too expensive. So that is something else I hope that we can have a discussion, hopefully around, as we talk about this plan. Thank you.
Ms. Mitchell, I did want to note, and Clark just mentioned this, the consortium of universities is also going to be engaged and involved in this. Just want to make sure I noted that. Let me hand it off to Paul to run through that.
Chair Ehrlich, followed by Deputy Secretary McAndrew.
Just a couple of things. One is that within COG and within regionalism, it's been one of the impediments is that we all have different regulations often imposed on us by our state. And I've served 12 years on the transportation board, and there are a lot of things we probably agreed about philosophically, but you couldn't do in one state that you could do in another state and it extended even to things like minimum wage, where we could do something in Montgomery County that couldn't have been done in Fairfax County unless the state acted. And some of the impediments are beyond this group here, unless we can get our states to make us a little bit more free than we are now. I'll say that I'm envious of Northern Virginia's revenue plan because they're allowed to tax commercial property. You out-tax Montgomery County by about 50% on commercial property. I appreciate that very much. But it also, but it really, for us, we're not able to build the projects that we could build because we don't have the ability to do what you're able to do. And those are the kind of things we need to level out around the region. You're not going to have a regional fund that has any kind of equity among jurisdictions unless all of us are able to play on a similar playing field. If I have to go only after residents for money, and you have the ability to go after businesses for money, I can tell you who's going to get reelected and who's not. And it's not going to be people who put the burden solely on top of residents. I think it's important we think about how we evolve this. I think the bus issue is tied up in the traffic issue. And the resistance to buses isn't just, some of the suggested cultural issues. It's the fact that the bus goes slower than a car. So it is not rapid transit. It cannot go faster, and it has additional stops, which is why bus rapid transit is really critical. And it's why I appreciate, the state working with you to free up Georgia Avenue to try this nice little experiment by getting a lane on Georgia Avenue during rush hour. I get to actually all day for buses to try to take the load off the shutdown of Metro on the east side of the county and then eventually on the west side of the county. But what I hope is that we think not just about capturing the people who would otherwise gone to the station, but because the bus has more stops than Metro ever had, it seems like it's an opportunity to figure out, can we sell this bus line to residents who don't have access to the Metro because of distance and inconvenience? Is this an opportunity with all those apartment buildings to say, hey folks, this thing's running down here, it's got preferential pricing, and it'll get you to a station really quickly? Because it might be a way of understanding what advertising and promotion could do if we had something really, really different and really, really effective in order to move people. And I would like to continue working with the district because we've had conversations about Connecticut Avenue in Wisconsin and how we could run people from Montgomery County all the way to the end of DC on those two roads that both of us were decided to take out of curb lanes. I'd have no reason to run 3 lanes into traffic, into 2 lanes of traffic at the district line. So I would be compelled to figure out how to get those riders into transit. But if the district does the same thing, those are things we can cooperate on, and I think would be really important for all of us. And I think the big thing, and this goes back to the creation of Metro, we've kind of never been willing to deal with since then, is value capture. This system should have been built with taxing districts around every single metro station. We created enormous wealth for people. Let's not be confused about that. And people will talk to you about the impact of taxes on their operating expenses. What they never talk about is the value they build every year in their property, which they withdraw and refinance and benefit from on a continual basis. And we've been too timid about value capture. And it doesn't make sense. I mean, we unleashed the ability to do amazing amounts of development. The public largely pays for it. It shouldn't be shared with the business community because they get special benefit from it that other people don't get. I would really encourage as part of these solutions that we think again about is a value capture around metro stations, something worth going after. It's not going to solve the problem. It'd have to be extraordinarily hard to do that, but it might contribute to a solution, and I would be very supportive of that.
Thank you, Mr. Elrich. Next, we have Deputy Secretary McAndrew, followed by Director Klein and Mr. King.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for not being here on schedule, but I think what's important to note in this region is that everybody's here at the table today at this kickoff. This doesn't happen in every metro area, and this is a challenging metro area with 3 jurisdictions in the federal government. And thinking about that, reflecting on what we have is important. I think this region doesn't do that enough. But what we have is pretty world-class, and certainly at the tops of the game here in this country. It's the question of what can we do together? We've got challenges, financial challenges across the board throughout all of the jurisdictions. But I think, from Maryland's perspective, under Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Miller and Secretary Wiedefeld's perspective, transit is critical to achieving all of our plans. Why we, put up the money quickly and early this year to make sure that we've got the breathing room to have this conversation. But, the essentials of world-class transit is, I'll just stick to the question prompts on the screen here. Efficient, rapid, frequent, seamless. And that seamless is the challenge, I think, in this region to a certain extent, if that's what we're going to tackle. We've got great systems. We in Maryland are going to bring a new one online here relatively soon called the Purple Line. And it's going to be seamlessly integrated into WMATA system soon. It's coming soon, very soon. I think some of the challenges that we face, and these are the challenges that COG and this collective group can face, is that there's great power in this group if we can go ahead and speak with one voice and have a shared vision. When this group works together, we can speak to the federal government and speak with some level of power around what's a missing component from the federal program, operating a system, right? We can do that. I think collectively we have our own visions for what economic development and opportunity looks like, but land use is a missing ingredient in transit, right? In transportation writ large, but we have to be aligned on what that means. I think that, what lacks sometimes collectively across the region is prioritization and shared priorities. Oftentimes we revert back to WMATA because that is the thing that keeps on kicking and needing our support. But if we can align our priorities and our investments, there's real opportunity. And I think, there's near-term prioritization. Looking at the bus, I couldn't agree more. There's great efforts afoot. And we need to lean in there. But just putting buses out there doesn't mean success. county executive, it is incumbent on the state of Maryland and the roads that the buses run on to prioritize, as well as in the district and in Virginia. It's not just WMATA or the local buses opportunities, but I think then collectively, we don't have enough money to do all the enhancements that everybody wants to do. Let's just grapple with that and understand and appreciate that. So what are those things that we want to do? What are those things that are worth investing in, and where do we want to be in the next 10, 15, 20 years? And I think this group can grapple with that, but the challenges are real, the financial headwinds are real at this juncture, but this region has faced them before, and we've come out the other side, and we've got a pretty good system today, but we can take it to the next level.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. Ms. Klein, if we could just, second, give Mayor Bowser an opportunity.
I just really, and I'm looking through all of the materials now. I just have a request that if there are funding models that are out there that have energy, that have been studied, that we get to them sooner rather than later. I just don't think, and I appreciate that we're going to have a build up and planned meetings, but I think if there are things that we're already discussing, Metro has an idea, Fairfax has an idea, then we should push those models to the task force early so that we can start kicking them around now.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. Ms. Klein, followed by Mr. Gill.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Smedberg. Much of what I was going to say has already been said, so I'll just highlight a few points. First, defining what is world-class is very important and very difficult. I've actually, like Dr. Lowe, in my day job, I work with a lot of communities around the country. Many are asking the same question. We've had the pandemic, travel patterns have changed, people's working and traveling behaviors have changed. What does success look like in the future? Everybody is wrestling with this question, and I think the fact that we are putting that first on the agenda is going to position us to really lead the nation in answering that question. Now, it's going to look different here than it might in other communities. We might look at different metrics, we might strive for different things, but it is a very important question to ask, and I'm glad we're starting with that. I think that one of the things I wanted to highlight from the Metro perspective, there have been times in Metro's history where I think the rail system has really dominated the conversation. It cost a lot to build it. There's a lot of station openings, groundbreakings, all sorts of things. I would say that in the last couple of years, there has been a very significant focus on the bus system and how Metro Bus interacts around the region with other bus providers. The commitment to bus on the Metro side is real and it's deep, and you're going to hear more about it this summer as the Better Bus redesign starts rolling out. And I just think that's fantastic. I think it might have been Mr. Glass who said that's where the growth potential is in the future. Not that rail isn't important. It is also extremely important to building a world-class system, but meeting the needs of bus riders and looking for the growth potential there is going to be super important as well as meeting the needs of our Metro Access riders. Those who can't use the fixed route system, Metro has done a lot of innovative things to try to provide better service at reduced cost for folks who can't use the fixed route system. So there's a lot of innovation happening on rail, on bus, on paratransit at Metro. And I think we have the ingredients here around the table for success in this endeavor. Like possibly several of you, I have the Brookings 2005 studies still sitting on my desk, kind of collecting dust. I actually looked for it before I came here. Yeah, it's a little dusty. And I'm committed as we go forward in this to make sure that we're not in this situation 20 years from now, that those residents of this region in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years are going to look back at today and say that was the start of something big. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Klein. Let me turn to Mr. Jordan, and following that, Ms. Reed, Ms. Fitzwater, and Ms. Land.
Hey, good afternoon. It's Mayor Emmett Jordan from the city of Greenbelt. Just wanted to share a couple of thoughts about the opportunities and challenges. And I think really big challenge is just going to be balancing the immediate needs of the present with the capacity that we need for the future. If we're going to meet our traffic and sustainability goals, partnership and really thinking long-term is so important. You know, thinking about the build-out of Metro using 2 rails instead of a 3-rail system is the kind of decision that we really have to avoid. So we need to look at where the growth is going to be taking place between now and 2050. We have a lot of projections. We know post-COVID that we are continuing to deal with shifts in working patterns. There's been a lot of talk about 10-minute suburbs, about people remaining in their local areas, but still the connections to the urban core are essential. So that long-term look at where the growth is going to be, meeting that capacity. And the other point that I just wanted to bring up and to agree that engaging non-compact members is really, really important. So in having this discussion about the future of transportation in our immediate area, it can't really take place without engaging the MPO and the business interest in Baltimore. You know, Baltimore and DC, we're all connected. So as we grow these concentric circles, we have to look south, but we have to look north, Howard County, Anne Arundel County, and Baltimore County, Baltimore City. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
Catherine Reed, I'm the mayor of the city of Fairfax. We have a very small bus system called the Q bus system that we've had since 1981. And that bus system was started in collaboration with George Mason University back in 1981. We were one of the first local bus systems to go fare free in 2020 because of that financial collaboration with the university. So I rode that bus in 1981 as a 19-year-old sophomore because there were no dormitories on the campus of George Mason until October 25th, 1981, because I moved into that dorm. And I will ride the bus home this afternoon as a 62-year-old mayor, okay? So transit really does have to include the bus system, and there are people in my community who still don't know that the bus is free. They don't know the bus goes to the metro station. I had a gentleman ask me on Friday, you know, when I said it went to George Mason University, he goes, but he's a senior citizen. He goes, can I go to George? Can I go on the campus? I'm like, yes, you can. We have several hurdles here about going back to who rides the bus. Our seniors could ride the bus if they were bus riders. They're not. Students ride the bus, including public students. K through 12 students can also ride our bus for free, and they do. So talking about the consortiums of universities coming together to talk about, we've got 40,000 students at George Mason, and we've got campuses in Prince William, Loudoun, and Fairfax, you know, and so in Arlington. And so we're talking about students using these buses. We're talking about older people using these buses, but we've got to make it easy for people to use the bus. There's one bus stop, probably more than one, but at Fairfax Circle, there's a bus stop that is a Q bus stop, a Fairfax connector stop, and it's a Metro bus stop. 3 different systems, which is great, right? Because the Q bus has a limited route, so you can go to another. But how easy if you don't ride the bus, or you're an occasional user, or you're new to the area, or new to the country? How do you figure it out? And I think technology is the answer. Technology, everybody has a smartphone. Kids have smartphones, older people have smartphones. Why can't we figure out a seamless way for people to go from one bus system to another to the metro and simply scan something on their phone that gets the fares and the money to the right system? I don't think that's impossible. I think the question is, who funds that kind of research and development on that kind of technology to look at this user experience? And because it all comes down to user adoption, right? This could all be great if we could just get people on the bus, get people on the metro. This would solve a lot of problems, wouldn't it? But we don't have a seamless way for people who are new, who are old, who are young, who speak a different language to figure out the system so that this is their first premier optimal choice to take every time. That's my 2 cents worth.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Ms. Fitzwater.
Thank you. I'm Jessica Fitzwater, the county executive in Frederick County, and I'll just reiterate a couple of the points that folks have made about some southern and also northern parts of the region. So Frederick County, Maryland is the fastest growing Maryland county within the COG region. And so talking about, you know, looking for more riders. I mean, they are there. We have a growing transit system in Frederick County. We're one of the only ones that has remained fare-free since COVID, and we've seen ridership going up because of that. We're doing a network redesign study with some of our American Rescue Plan funds and improving stops and shelters and all of that. Our team is doing community trainings with nonprofits, with student groups on just how to ride the bus and making people feel, a little bit more comfortable and improving the technology pieces as well. But in terms of the seamlessness and the interconnection with any other systems, it's completely not there. But I think, the fact that you have all of the individual systems in your stakeholder group is good, because even some of these smaller systems have a lot of lessons learned and have a lot to bring to the table in terms of the getting more people to adopt even using our systems, some of those community education and outreach pieces as well. And I would also, I wanted to throw in also just the topic of workforce. And so in terms of recruiting workforce into transit. So I know, just like probably some other jurisdictions, hiring CDL drivers has been a challenge for our jurisdiction. And so I think a piece to look at as we're doing this regionally is, what are we doing to attract folks into this as a career pathway? And are there things that we could be doing kind of regionally or across systems to help with that? So that was a second piece that I wanted to break up. And lastly, the Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, prioritized affordable housing during this past session and just signed into law one of the most comprehensive affordable housing packages really in recent history in Maryland. And it includes focusing on density around multimodal and transit-oriented development. So I do think that land use piece and making sure we're keeping that housing piece in our minds as we work on this regionally is going to be really important as well.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzwater. Ms. Leon, followed by Mr. O'Connor, and seeing no other, one more hand. Okay, I was going to, Mr. McPike, you were going to be the last speaker, but no, Ms. Leon.
Yes, thank you. It's wonderful hearing everybody's comments, and repeat a couple of things around what's important here. The City of Falls Church, the typical resident, we don't have a local bus system. So for a resident in our city to get around, we do a little bit of Fairfax, we do a little bit, we're on the metro. So the whole notion of interconnectivity is very important for the taxpayer, right, and the resident in the City of Falls Church. What's also important is making sure that we have an ability to plan, right, for our contribution, right, to support transportation, and being able to explain to that citizen why they have, for example, this year, $1 million left to allocate towards schools, towards bike infrastructure, things that are needed for the community, right? So I want to make sure that while I appreciate the long-term vision, and it is very important to stay long-term, that we be very honest with ourselves, that we take a look at, the word sustain and the word improve in a shorter window of immediately what we can do in a year or two as we see increased investments that jurisdictions have to make in this space. I do think that in what I'm seeing in the documentation that is shared, that we are under leveraging the power of the private side, looking at private-public partnerships around this problem. There are a lot of for-profit companies that recruit and rely on the transportation systems to find good workers. And I think that there are large employers, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, for example, who would be willing to partner, and there's other companies in how we solve this problem. Lastly, I think when I applaud the whole notion of the regional task force, but I want to pause and make sure that what I see here is an opportunity to make sure that we've got all jurisdictions represented, right? So when we take a look at voting on this resolution, I just want to understand if there's flexibility for further discussion as to who is on the task force. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ms. let's see, Mr. O'Connor, and then Mr. McLeod.
A lot of great information, and at the risk of saying things that have probably already been said, I think for the task force, maybe use this as a weighted voting opportunity. As you hear people say the same things over and over again, that will tell you that to the collective, it's a really important concept. Things that I've heard that I absolutely agree with involve concepts of interconnectivity and bidirectionality and micro and macro in terms of the problem solving. Like my colleague from Frederick County, the county executive, we're somewhat removed from the way people often think about transit in our region. And I'm really gratified to hear people now talk about transit as something other than just a way for people to get to and from work. Because I think we've seen over the last couple of years, and Emmett mentioned this, the nature of work is changing, the nature of the way people use transportation systems is changing. And while we all recognize that we are in the gravitational pull of the District of Columbia for a whole variety of reasons, we're out there trying to establish our own solar systems as well. Frederick wants to be a place that people come to work and to visit. But in order to do that, the systems need to work both directions. And I'll just say it, they don't. They don't work in both directions right now. It's easy to get, not easy, it's easier to get from Frederick into the district to do something fun and really great than it is to get from the district out to Frederick to do it. That's something that for us in Frederick County, we want to change. And I think the focus that this task force can bring to that holistic, comprehensive solution to transit as a service for quality of life in all aspects of what our residents are looking for. It's a lofty ambition, but if we don't aspire to what it is that we really want and work towards it, we know we are never going to get there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. O'Connor, Mr. McPike, and then our last speaker is
And I'd like to make another statement if I might when we get there.
Thank you very much. I don't want to be too duplicative of things that have been said before. In Alexandria, the Dash bus system has been called out during the presentation for its strong ridership rebound in the wake of the pandemic, a lot of which I think can be attributed to our fare-free structure, but also the fact that as the pandemic was sort of cresting, we reconsidered our entire bus system like map and restructured it around providing access to the bus to the communities most in need of that access, going from 20% coverage of some equity target communities up to 80% in terms of easy bus access. And we did that in part because we had the Metro bus system there as a backbone as well, that we knew was going to fill in on a large portion of our network, and we could focus our regional bus system on those localized concerns. Like when I walk out my door to go to the Metro station in the morning, I can take the 102, or I can take the Metro 28A to get to King Street. And I think that when we look at opportunities here, one of the opportunities we have is we have 12 bus systems in this region that are doing different things. That some of them are doing well, some of them they could learn from others. And you know, they used to refer to states as the laboratories of democracy, as a way the United States as a whole could look at what we're doing in different states and pick the best operations and pull them up into the federal level. And I think that the multitude of bus systems we have here, like Dash, like the Q system, that are doing good things, provide us with a wide variety of experiences to draw upon as we look at how to better integrate this entire system. And with particular that focus on buses, because while the rails are how you get around our region, the buses are often how we get around our communities and connect ourselves to our homes, to the jobs and the restaurants that we love in our neighborhoods. So I'm glad to see the full representation of the local bus systems on the proposed task forces, and I look forward to seeing what this process can produce in terms of recommendations on how to strengthen transit across our region.
Thank you, Mr. McPike, Mr. Turconi, or Ms. Turconi, followed by Ms. Bowden.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the presentation. So I represent the Little River District of Loudoun County, and Loudoun County has been positioned as DC's wine country. And I was looking at the travel trends And one thing I noticed is that Fridays, there aren't many people coming on Metro. So I think working with tourism groups like Visit Loudoun and other tourism representatives in the different jurisdictions would help to bring up ridership on the weekends, like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think it's an untapped opportunity. And Loudoun County has done a great job of advertising and trying to bring people out into the wineries and breweries and our different event centers and B&Bs. And I do think looking kind of outside of the box and maybe coming up with ideas to bring more riders on like off hours, not during commuter times, is a good idea. And Mr. Clark, I love that you brought up bicycles because I do think that's an opportunity for the area as well. When I went door to door in my district, people were saying, I would love to bike to Metro. And my district's suburban, it's not urban, but it's close enough where people could get from my suburban area to the urban Metro stop, the Ashburn stop. So I think making that connection, making sure that the bicycles can go on the buses and on the Metro is a really good idea because it's green mobility, right? And people like to cycle today, and I think that's a trend, especially with I don't know, with us bringing in some more bike paths and bike trails. I think that's something to look at. And lastly, I agree with the land use opportunity. I think Loudoun Gateway Station needs a little bit of thought to bring in more businesses, more economic development, more entertainment. I know that's a commuter hub station, but I think people have been saying that one needs to be more vibrant. So I think bringing in the land use portion is a good idea to discuss as well. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Mr. Coney. Ms. Garvey, and our last speaker, Ms. Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for letting me speak twice. I will be quick. And it's great to hear all the conversation. I think this region is really united in many ways. I think I have, like many of us, been flipping through the papers and looking at things because we haven't had a chance to really look at it. And of course, I focus on the task force. Arlington County has a lot of Metro stops. We absolutely depend on Metro. And of course, I'm disappointed to see that we don't have a spot on but I see how it's sort of divided out, 5 for the district, 5 for Maryland, 5 for Virginia. But then I'm talking with my colleague, Ms. Leon here, and we're talking about, but how about the 3, like Alexandria Falls Church and Arlington all use a lot. They really do. And we don't have a seat at the table at all. Is that all right? So then I've been contacting, we all text while we're going right with my staff. And apparently DRPT and NBTC our regional Virginia groups are unaware of how the task force was specifically taken. And I'm not saying anything bad or nefarious was done at all. But what I am proposing is that maybe a little more thought needs to be given to the exact membership. And I would love, when we get to this point, I would like to be able to offer a motion that we just take out the word attached so that the resolution will refer to the task force, and we'll take a little more time to work out who's on it. The current makeup may be absolutely fine, but I feel like there needs to be a little more consultation. And I think if we're going to move forward as a region and as a group, we need to make sure everybody's comfortable and moving forward. And I think a number of us are not quite yet comfortable with that. I don't think it'll take much time, but I think it will make the whole process stronger and help us move forward. So I just wanted to bring up that point and really appreciate the opportunity to do it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Libby. And these are my comments. I can't speak for Mr. Clark or Mr. Mercer or Mr. Allen, but I know a lot of thought did go into the makeup of these committees, and it's really hard. You know what this is going to be like. And so a lot of thought did go into it. And DRPT, you referenced DRPT, you referenced NBTC. They are very much going to be a part of this. We all have to work collaboratively. I don't know what it'll look like. I know Joe and others are representing, Maryland. We have the District of Columbia well represented. I think we really got to understand to hit the aggressive timeline we have and to take care of or take advantage of the urgency that the chairman mentioned earlier as we started out here. I mean, I think they really did work to get, a good solid group of people, as part of a coordinating committee to really make it actionable and really move things forward as quickly as possible. And I know that there's going to be a big commitment the outreach and communication. And I think that's really, really important. And I know they are committed to that. And so it wasn't that Arlington specifically was left out or anyone else. It was like, okay, here's a group of people that have shown, have leadership and real opportunity to really represent, the broader
Right.
group and really do the right thing. And Libby, we're on NBTC together. You know how that group operates. Everyone comes together. I mean, there's a perfect example. And I think that's sort of the model.
Yeah, thank you. And I do still want to make the motion, and maybe it won't, I think we need to move forward. I want to move forward really expeditiously. I still feel pretty strongly, it's one of those, that old proverb, if you want to move far, you get as many people on with you as you can. And I think we might be missing an opportunity here, and it was something that I think more involvement should be done on who is exactly on the task force. And I'm sorry, because I don't want to put a barrier into this at all, but I do feel like I have a responsibility to at least offer that amendment. We'll see where we go. And I will absolutely do whatever I can to support this process moving forward. And if it fails, that's absolutely fine. But I do feel that we ought to have that thought and that discussion. So thank you.
I will, before I turn to Ms. Santos, just chime in as well with my co-chair, Mr. Smedberg. One of the challenges has been trying to make sure that we've got representation from all of our jurisdictions and partners, and at the same time not have a task force of 50, 60 people. Because if we started adding task force members here, every single person at this table would be on the task force, plus about 20 to 30 more people. We have an aggressive and urgent timeline, and I think we have an aggressive and urgent need to get to the decision points that we have. I can go ahead and speak from a COG perspective as the chair of COG, working very closely with you and others and our COG members. This is going to be a priority at our July retreat. This is going to continue to be a priority in engaging all of our COG members and jurisdictions aggressively and comprehensively over the months and the next year. So I certainly respect and appreciate where you're coming from. I would love it if you didn't make that motion, because I do want to make sure that we can move forward with this, and I think it's important. So I respect where you're coming from, but I would ask that we're able to move forward with the resolution as is. But we're not actually debating the resolution yet. If we can let Ms. Santos, then we're going to get to the resolution if we could.
Valerie, last speaker.
Thanks, Paul and Charles. After that, I'm a little bit on a different topic, which is, well, first of all, good afternoon, and I appreciate having a chance to speak for a moment. I'm here in my capacity as a Metro board member representing the District of Columbia. But in my day job, I actually work at the World Bank, and my focus for the past 10 years is on urban infrastructure and sustainable urban development. So I'm very glad to hear some of the suggestions around what the DMV can learn from examples around the world, and not just the best-in-class cases, so not just the examples of seamlessness, which you might find in London or in Tokyo system, not just the examples of efficiency, which you might see in Tokyo or Hong Kong, but also the places where they've struggled, because I think it would be helpful to put a little perspective on the challenges here. DC is not alone, or the DMV is not alone, because I know I've worked in Brazil, and Rio de Janeiro has been struggling with similar metropolitan governance structures and similar challenges around financing. So I look forward to supporting that piece of this as much as possible. My next comment is there's going to be a lot of discussion about what is worth investing in terms of whether it's technology, which might be an easier one to justify, but other proposed upgrades and investments. And just, I think for all of us to keep in mind, what is worth investing in, part of the answer is the economic impact. What's the return on investment for the region? And I know some entities have done their own analysis, but I think as I hope that piece informs the discussions moving forward, economic feasibility. I think there was some conversation about potential sources for revenue, as well as potential future estimates of impact. Thanks.
Thank you, Valerie.
All right, thank you, everybody. So first off, I had a hunch if we had 7 extra minutes on the agenda from a shorter presentation, we were going to somehow use it, and we did. So congratulations, everybody. We want to move to the joint resolution, and just so from a process perspective, so that folks know how we're doing this, what we're going to do is that I'm going to make a motion in just a moment for the COG board to approve the resolution. We'll do that. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Smedberg to make a motion for the WMATA board to move that resolution, so just folks know what our process looks like here. Before I close, I'm going to save a couple of comments for our closeout because I know we're going to get through this joint resolution just fine. So I'll save those comments for a second. But what I want to do now is, again, my appreciation for everybody's comments. It's clear there's a lot of engagement and a lot of excitement here, and that's exciting. So with that, what I want to do is consider now our joint resolution, which is in front of us, for the partnership to develop a regional transit vision and establish a task force and 2 work groups to lead that work. That list of the task force, as has been discussed, is in front of you, as well as the work group members. They're in the packet. So again, I'm going to do this for the COG Board of Directors, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chair Smedberg so that he can do that for the Metro Board. So for our COG Board members, I'm now going to move to approve the joint resolution, and I'll ask if there's a second.
Second, Chair Randall.
Thank you, Chair Randall. I hear the second. So with that, the motion is now in
Could
front
I
of us.
make an amendment now?
And now is going to turn to discussion. So Ms. Garvey.
Thank you. Yes, I would just like to propose an amendment. We've had a fair amount of, I've had a lot of discussion, and remove the word attachment. That's all from the resolution. And if I can speak to it briefly, I understand everything that's been said. I've been through these kinds of things. I know how hard it is. And had our regional group staff been aware or more people been aware of it, I would have been more comfortable. It had been worked through a little more than in a way I think it needs to be. So that's why I'm offering this amendment. We'll see how it goes. Sorry to be the skunk at the garden party. Thank you.
No skunks allowed.
Could I have a second? I think I need a second. Thank you.
All right. I started to hear a second. Ms. Bailey, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Let me open just for discussion on that amendment. I would ask colleagues not to support this amendment, and here's why. Not appreciating and respecting where it's coming from, but I know the work that Mr. Mercer and Mr. Clark had put into the conversations. I know what the conversations that the staff had, and my driving concern in this is that we don't have a lot of time. We need to be able to get to work. We need to be able to move quickly, and I think that it's going to be in a very collaborative way. It brings a lot of partners to the table, and I think, as you heard Mr. Mercer talk about, especially within the working group, it's going to be, those are efforts that are also constantly going to be adding and bringing in more people into that process. From a task force perspective, I had actually argued we should think about having even a smaller task force if we want to be able to be effective and get things done. So we're sitting at about 20 people. I think that it becomes, the moment that one jurisdiction says, I'd like to add more people to it, the next jurisdiction says they like to add more people to it, we very quickly get to a very large task force. We need to be able to move quickly, and that's not a disrespect of where you're coming from. And I also know that we'll have other vehicles, be it our COG board and others, where we're going to have my commitment to you of very intense conversations and outreach to make sure that everybody's on board with that. Ms. Randall and then Ms. Mitchell.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's not a day of the week that I don't talk to regional colleagues, even when I don't want to talk to you all. I talk to you all the time. And so, my commitment, yeah, I love you too. My commitment to everyone, especially everyone in Virginia, is that if I will reach out to you and always accept it when you reach out to me, if you have any thoughts that you'd like me to bring forward, even if I maybe don't agree, I will bring your thoughts forward. The reason I didn't speak today is because everyone said what I would have said already, and there was no reason for me to rehash it. I will definitely associate myself with Chairman McKay's comments. But we talk all the time amongst ourselves, and we have the same goals, and we have the same vision, and we have the same mission. So with respect, I will not be supporting your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Chair, for your eloquent words. I appreciate what you're offering as an amendment, but because I too understand, I'm with you in regards to the selection. As a municipality, I would have loved to have been able to participate, but at this junction, we need to trust the process, and we need to trust the members who are going to be moving it forward. So likewise, I will not be supporting the amendment.
Thank you. Ms. Ashton.
Thank you. Monique Ashton, Mayor of Rockville. I didn't speak as well, associate myself with the comments because so many people covered and I have a lot of notes to follow up on. But I wanted to just speak to, I appreciate all the work that's been done to talk about what the task force will look like and the urgency of the time. Perhaps you can just, for my colleagues who may not be represented, and I appreciate, the desire to have a seat at the table. Can you share not just waiting for someone to reach out and ask for a question, but how you're going to proactively share with folks who may not be in this task force what is going on, and any, maybe there are survey opportunities or just the interactive opportunities, so that people don't have to scan all the time, that you may not know what you don't know. And so we want to make sure that those who may not be in the task force have an opportunity to learn more and weigh in when needed.
Great question. I'm going to turn to Mr. Mercer to help.
Well, from a staff level, a few comments. One, the task force membership, it started out right at three each, three, DC, Maryland, Virginia. There was advocacy to increase that a bit, but not too much. It's a balancing act to get the executive branches, the Mayor Bowser and Governor Moore and Governor Youngkin's administrations at the table. They are. We're super grateful for that. Also need legislative leadership. So you have money committee leadership in both Virginia, Maryland, and DC at the table. And then obviously local leadership. So once you've gone through executive representation, legislative leadership, it leaves a couple seats, mindful that this could not just be the WMATA compact members, that we need folks from outside the compact. So Mr. Collins from Charles County, I will say Senate Majority Leader Surville from Virginia helps check that box with Prince William, who's outside of the compact. That, I'm not saying he's not a local elected, but he does represent part of the county. There was some thought given to this. There was consultation with some elected and our governor's offices. Our partners are all at the table. These are elected officials. So we've had some of the stakeholder groups, whether they be associations or business groups, saying, well, we would like to be at the table with the elected officials as well, some of our environmental partners. So our work groups are the workforces of this effort. They will meet monthly, whereas the task force will probably meet 4 times. So every one of your CAOs will be part of the work group and will have all the information that the task force does. The design of those 2 work groups is to facilitate information and recommendations and feedback to the task force for consideration. Inner suburbs in Virginia, I'm not surprised, Ms. Garvey, to hear from you. I'm sitting 2 seats away from a former 3-4-term council member in Alexandria. 5 terms, sorry about that. Man, that was pretty good, Paul. Obviously, he's wearing a different hat now as the Metro chair, but we did feel that between Arlington and Alexandria, that Chairman Smedberg has a pretty good sense for the elected leadership. And obviously, look, this is why motions are able to be made and discussed, but that was the rationale behind it. We'll have this on the agenda for the retreat. We'll do a deep dive. Our retreats are off the record, and this is on the agenda and will continue to be every month at our COG board meeting.
And Mr. McKay.
Thank you. I appreciate Libby bringing this up, because I think the conversation that we just had was really important. I would just say that on the Virginia side, there are many organizations pointed in the same direction we are here, whether it's NVTC, NVTA. I would just say we have existing infrastructure that help hear from a lot of members of Virginia, and I don't expect there to be much difference of opinion among the Virginia jurisdictions. I mean, history recently proves that, and so I would just say lean on those other organizations and infrastructure that we also have to provide input. I appreciate that thought is being given to other ways that input can be provided, because we want to hear, I want to hear from as many voices as possible. And I would just also say that from Fairfax County's standpoint, we are always open to a population-based task force.
That is the first time I've heard you say that, John.
What a quote.
Ms. Viv.
And herein lies why that he is my friend. But I just wanted to say I appreciate all of the intense effort that has been put together for this resolution. I just want to speak on behalf of Prince William County. As all of you know, at the head of the table, Prince William County has worked very hard to be a partner in this. And though Mr. Cerville is now in Fairfax County, I appreciate your comment, Mr. Mercer, but there cannot be an even better representation than from our county, than the ones that have worked hard to participate in the COG efforts and all that we do. So I would be remiss if I did not say that. And I would be remiss if I did not say that I'm surprised that we weren't even considered with the question as it relates to this process. And so though I understand the effervescence that has been put into this and the urgency, the sense of urgency, but when you talk about regionally and where we want to go and grow, going to the Southern Corridor, I would invite you and invoke you to please look at Prince William County as a player going forward.
as we process in any process that we're going through, because it is essential regionally that we are a player, as we are the 10th largest county in the nation. So I say that without any reservations and support, but I support my colleague because everyone needs to have a seat at the table, not just the ones that are established. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Ms. Fitzgerald.
I actually just have a question. So I support the task force as it is, even though Frederick County, that northern region, is not represented, but I understand the need to have a size of the group that's going to make it manageable for the time frame. But my question is, and this might be for the maker of the motion, or it could be for you all, the attachment of the actual task force we're adopting as part of this resolution. You also have the attachment of the advisory groups. So if we have a community partner that we think should be on the advisory group, is that something we should be bringing up now because it's part of the resolution, or is that something that can be added after there's action on the resolution?
We're happy to add them. It's a living document. Those are who's been invited, and we're able to add additional groups.
So we can reach out after this, and it
Yes.
does. Okay, thank you.
And if I could, for the benefit of the COG board members who are here, on behalf of the Metro board members, I can tell you when Dr. Lowe sits at the table, she is an excellent advocate for the District of Columbia. When Joe McAndrew sits at the table, he is an excellent advocate for the counties and cities in Maryland. As Clark said, I was on the Alexandria City Council. Libby, you and I have worked together a long time, and BTC and other places. So there is a local mindset there by the representatives who are listed there as well. So please know that. Yeah. And Libby.
Thank you. I'll
comment.
finish. I really appreciate this discussion. I think it's really important. I think we will continue it at our COG retreat. I am willing to withdraw the motion if my seconder is okay with that. Thank you. And the point I was trying to make in some ways was, I was surprised it was really quick. And then when I find that DRPT, NVTC, there are a whole lot of groups that I would think would have been consulted and would know, didn't know, that makes me uncomfortable. So I'm just kind of making a point, and I think moving forward, point I'm sure has been made, and I don't think it was intentional, but we just have got to be really careful to be including everybody as we go forward all the way, and no surprises should be, I think, the motto, if that's okay. And I'm happy to withdraw the motion. I think that'll make things go a little easier today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garvey. Appreciate that. I do want to ask Mr. Mercer if you want to add something real fast.
Well, I thought the feedback was fantastic, and working with Secretary Miller's office in Virginia, which DRPT reports to, this was discussed and talked about. DRPT kind of got a brief of what this effort entailed, and I will be before you tomorrow night at NVTC to hear all of these thoughts, and I suspect I may know what a few of them are now, but I will be there tomorrow night to chat, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I was about to call a vote. Exciting. All right, Mr. Ehrlich and then Ms. Randall. And Mayor Bowser.
So quick question. We didn't have any public comment today. Is the task force going to be required to have public comment in the meeting? You'll set aside a period for comment as they do their work.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Randall.
Mr. Chairman, since we're back on the main motion, on page 5, where you have all the task force members listed, at the bottom it says federal government representative. Do we know who that person or persons would be at this time?
Let me ask Mr. Mercer to answer that.
Not at this time. We've reached out to DOT, and the Office of Management and Budget has voiced an interest, so they will select the representative, probably one of those two agencies. I would
Okay,
think.
so you're not looking for a elected representative from the federal government, a Congressman Connolly or somebody. You're looking for
Right.
somebody from, okay.
Right,
thank
and
you.
we briefed the congressional delegation staff this morning on this effort, and we were
Okay.
going to do that. I will say, we got a note that President Biden has an event here later
Oh, I thought
today.
you said he was gonna be in the
So,
task
you know,
force. I
he
thought
would
you
make
said
a
he was gonna be in the
great
task force.
candidate for the federal representative, so we could all just kind of.
Good, thank you.
So if we keep the meeting running long enough, he'll just fill that slot. Mayor Bowser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And speaking of President Biden, I wanted to ask if it had been considered, and perhaps you could take this as a friendly amendment, if in the resolve clauses, resolve sub 1, it could be added as an add-on or maybe even parenthetically to the commuter transit services Union Station. As part of the list, WMATA will partner to develop a unified vision, blah, 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 and says including regional, local, and commuter transit services. And I would offer as friendly comma, including Union Station, as all of the transit services go into that location.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. I think that would be fine, just so that everyone's on the same page. Which whereas?
I'm
so I can make sure we're all pointing to the same
on,
one.
I'm not in the whereases. I'm
Okay.
in the be it resolved, sub 1.
Got it. Thank you. And
Third
just-
line,
Mhm.
and commuter services, and I think I might say to include and including a Union Station.
I would accept that as friendly, unless there's an objection out there.
Chair Allen, I would just say, I think we probably just missed that, Mayor, so I think that's a great catch. We talked about Union Station being part of this and part of some of our regional plans, so I think staff would just own missing that term. So.
Excellent. And we can resolve that quickly with just accepting the friendly amendment. So thank you, Mayor Bowser.
Thank you.
All right, any further hands or discussion? All right, with that then, for our COG board members, and then again, we're going to turn to our WMATA board members right after that. I think that we've had the discussion for both, though. To our COG board members, let me ask all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? And any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Let me turn to Mr. Smedberg now.
Chair Allen, you don't know the Metro Board very well. You said that with such confidence. So on behalf of the Metro Board, I'd like to move approval of the joint resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Lowe. So we have a motion and a second on second. Are there any additional questions or comments? Please note the addition to the whereas or the resolve clause. Now we'll need to call a vote of the board members. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, now it's official. All right. So on behalf of the board, I want to thank our counterparts for embarking on what should truly be a region-shaping initiative. And now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Chair Allen for final remarks.
Thank you very much, Chair Smedberg. I want to thank the WMATA board for supporting this resolution. I want to thank the COG board for supporting this resolution. I want to thank the COG and WMATA staff for the hard work that went into this. Again, let's give them a round of applause and thank them for their work. After such an incredible and robust conversation, I feel incredibly confident coming out of this. I really do. I feel like we are energized around this. I think as a region, we are committed to knowing the hard work that's ahead of us, but meeting the opportunity. I think that we're also committed to sticking the landing on this one. This is going to be hard work. I don't, just like Jeff, I don't want to be coming back 20 years from now with a, gosh, I thought we talked about that already, or have some dusty report that we're going to be pointing to. I think all of us are looking towards action. We're looking towards urgency, and we are looking to move our region forward. None of us want to tread water. We want to talk about what transit means to our region, to our growth, to our economy, to our job creation, to our residents, and to our workers. So thank you all. This is the beginning, not the end, certainly. Our next meeting is going to be taking place in June, so stay tuned. We don't have the exact date set, but it's going to be coming very soon. What is that? June 10th is what I'm told, so I'm looking forward to June 10th, seeing many of you together again. I think it's going to have a robust process. We also talked about the robust community and public engagement process going to take place. So thank you all very much for joining us today. I have to officially now, yeah. Oh wait, I totally forgot one part. You're right. My apologies. Wait a minute. We need a drum roll for this. So we want to build our momentum today to get this action-oriented work started. So I'm pleased to announce that we are calling this initiative DMV Moves, Moving Our Region Forward Together. There's actually a logo, which you can now see up on the big board. Let's give it a round of applause. It's got all the colors, all the moves. It's feeling great. All right. And so with that, now I am going to thank everybody. I got to actually gavel it out before we're closed. So thanks, everybody, and this meeting is now adjourned.